the most timely thing here is the Player of the Season awards, which were announced last night when we're recording this podcast ourselves, and no surprises really. As you'd expect, Paul Mullin, clean sweep. I know both of us gave our sort of own Player of the Awards earlier in the season, particularly on robryanred.com as well. If people want to check that out, they can read them as well. But it looks like the players didn't agree with us on all those.
It's hard to argue, isn't it, that Paul Mullin, the best player, has swept the board. That is quite difficult to argue as much as I want to, and that's nothing against Paul Mullin. I just want to be contrary and make the case. I did think, Rich, you've been in teams growing up, as have I, and we've been around a lot of teams in terms of journalism. Usually that player's player one is often different to the main player of the year, or there's different things that go into it, right, for the players. So I did think Ben Tozer had a good shout at that one, given he played every game. Not to be. Paul Mullin, congratulations to Paul Mullin, men's player of the season, men's players player of the season, and top goal scorer. So I wonder how big Paul Mullin's mantelpiece is. Do you think he has like a?
I'm glad you said mantelpiece.
Do you think he has his own glass cabinet, or what do you think he does with all the trophies? Or do they go? Is there just too many trophies that you can't keep them all on display? And you just have to pick and choose.
Yeah, I think when you've got his ambition as well of wanting to win more, maybe you have to delay the trophy cabinet till you're in the tail end of your career. He might be wanting to add even more to it next season and the years ahead.
What are you doing though? I feel like when it's your birthday and you get cards, and some cards go up in prime locations, and some cards
family
and
and close friends.
You know what I mean? So he's probably got his National League winners medal high up there, Golden Boot, but then you think he's already been promoted with League Two. I mean, is some of these awards getting put on the bottom of the fire? Where are they going?
Just bedroom, another one,
under the bed? Yeah, you know what I mean? He's that good. He can say just another one.
Yeah, I think I remember, was it Gary Lineker said he kept his Golden Boot from the World Cup in a carrier bag in the loft or something? I guess as well, some players be very sentimental and want to maybe show off their awards. Some of them are maybe a bit more modest as well, and don't need the reminder because they've got the proof themselves that they are good enough. But yeah, I think there was no real surprises were there. I mean, when we spoke about Player of the Awards, maybe initially it was like 2 months ago. It's probably before the end of the season itself. I think we were both saying that you could be a bit contrary. You could have these wild card options that we all love in modern journalism, but if you boil it down, you take a step back, it was only ever going to be Paul Mullin, wasn't it? The man is an absolute machine. He's an extraterrestrial talent in the National League. He just, every week, he's basically our best player. He scores the goals, he drags the team through games, he does it in the big matches, he does it when the pressure's on. Yeah, you can make cases for anyone else, but it is Paul Mullin. What did Rob McElhenney say? He's one of the best players in the world. Maybe wouldn't go that far, but I'd certainly say he's one of the best Wrexham players I've ever seen, and I know that'll be a debate for when he's got his actual legacy left behind. And he's only been here for two years. There's always going to be the caveat of it's only the National League. Rob Page certainly thinks that anyway, but he is just as close maybe as it's going to be to a living legend watching Wrexham right now, and it's just a privilege. And I can't wait to see what he does next season because, like you said, he's already completed League Two.
I think it's a weird thing to say given he's just got promoted and all the hullabaloo that came last year. I think this is a huge year for Paul Mullin as an individual in terms of as a person. He's got his book coming out. He's going to be season 2 of the doc. I think will have even more traction than season 1 because I still see on Twitter now people coming out with season 1. I've just watched it, that they're just catching up with it. They're just being put onto it. Season 2 I think will be even bigger, particularly just given the ending and given the FA Cup and all that sort of thing. I then think his book's going to come out. Ryan and Rob are going to be pushing that like no else. He's going to have the tour where he'll be the guy that people want the autographs from. I guarantee you that open training session with Chelsea and Wrexham, it'll be his name that people want the autograph of and kind of pictures with and all that sort of stuff. And I just think his fame, not that he cares too much about that, but his fame right now I think will explode. I genuinely think going into 2024, I think Paul Mullin's fame will be absolutely unparalleled for kind of the level we're at currently and the level he's been at previously. So
I was thinking this the other day, Nath. When Messi Mania swiped over, I was almost thinking he could get to the stage where his reputation is big enough to go to the MLS. in his later years of his career if he wanted to.
It's a fair point. I mean, again, much
Philly
of his
Union.
much of his
35,
movement.
36.
Much
I
of
know
his
he wouldn't be
move-
thinking about that yet, but
Right. Much of his movement is about family, though, isn't it? Like, where would his family go? So if that was, let's just play hypotheticals that eventually, Philly Union want to break the bank and get him as one of their kind of like designated players. It's hard because I think he just loves where he lives and loves where he, is he from? Is it Litherland in Merseyside, I think, and very quite comfortable there, and he's given interviews before talking about how he now starts to get recognised when he's out shopping doing his big shop, which doesn't happen to either me or you, which is probably a relief, to be honest, when I'm doing my big shop. But yeah, I'm excited for him, and like you say, I can't really argue with player of the season. I probably could argue with National League goal of the season, given they picked, I think, the wrong one of his from the Boreham Wood game. They picked the second one. I'd have gone with the first one. We've said that already. Top goal scorer with, 47 goals. Player of the season. I mean, I just think that dressing room knows who the best player is, and have gone with that. But the one I think that was more interesting, Rich, that was more of a debate I saw on social media, young player of the season. I made my case for it to be Sam Dalby. I don't know, did you end up going with Ryan Barnett? Others definitely did.
I went Ryan Barnett just because he is one of the most exciting Wrexham players I've watched in years. He gives me sort of Carlos Edwards vibes, and he just gets you off your seat. He's so excited, so unpredictable, really, and I love that. But I think, like you said, sometimes you got to take a wider step back at the context of the entire season. And if you want to take one of those players' contributions out, whose would have the biggest effect on the final league table? It probably is Sam Dalby's. That goal at Aldershot. You think of just how reliable he was and some of those big moments he had. I know Ryan Barnett was a difference maker and he did help us in some games. You think particularly even sort of boring. What do you think against Notts County as well? He was electric in both of those games, and Notts County particularly, him and Mendy were so crucial to being able to exploit that high line that few teams were able to do last season. But Dalby, the other caveat for me for Dalby is Barnett was largely playing full 90s in most of his games. He's playing at least an hour. Sam Dalby is being thrown on with 10 minutes left and saying, we need a goal, try win as this. If Dalby's on the pitch, it usually means that we're either winning comfortably and whatever you do is redundant, or we're in desperate need of a goal. So I think the stakes were so much higher for Sam Dalby whenever he was on the pitch, whereas Barnett sort of had that free hit, the free run. So I think, considering how little he played and how young he is as well, I think Sam Dalby, you forget what an asset he was last season.
What my counter to, I think, had Ryan Barnett been here the entire season, I think it'd have been a landslide victory, and that's not to diminish the Sam Dalby winning it or my pick that Sam Dalby should have won it. I just think that the kind of the sway of support, the swell of support for Barnett is massive, and the fact that he probably ran Dalby quite close for the awards. I haven't seen the breakdown of it while we record this. But what I would say is, we mentioned the goal at Aldershot, and he's given big moments in the cups as well, think of Coventry. But what I would say, the biggest credit I can give Sam Dalby is, at the start of the season, he was undoubtedly the third choice striker. He was definitely like a tier below Ollie Palmer and Paul Mullin. And I think the biggest credit or compliment I can give Sam Dalby is he made that debate about who would play with Mullin a legitimate argument. I remember going down to Dagenham on a Tuesday night where we'd looked like absolute Barcelona, prime Brazil, and Ollie Palmer played and come back into the team and played really well and had the fire in him and celebrated like it meant a lot to prove some people wrong. But I think the biggest credit to Sam Dalby is, for weeks on end, I think we said it on the podcast, I definitely just liked that balance that Dalby and Mullin had together. I think, the biggest credit for me was that he made that a conversation, made that a discussion point for Phil Parkinson and his staff, and that shouldn't be underestimated given kind of how far behind he was starting in that race to play regular minutes up top.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm intrigued. I know that there is talk that Wrexham could be in the market for another striker if the right one came available this summer. I think certainly Wrexham always got to be interested in top players, and if another striker who is sort of League One Championship standard became available and could be added to that pool, I think we'd very much be in the picture to do so. But Dalby and Waters, you've got there a backup pairing who you would say would certainly be as good as quite a few in League Two already. And they're Wrexham's third and fourth choice strikers. I'm just really intrigued to see next season how that dynamic works, how the four of those players are rotated. We keep on saying, it is for your bingo checklist again, that we have that strength and depth, and we've got the ability next season to rotate a bit more because we've got the cups, we've got some lesser trophy games, in the EFL, and Waters and Dalby. That I'm intrigued to see them even as a partnership.
Right.
I think that's quite tasty,
Yeah.
and that's what we've not had in recent years, is that plethora of options and the chance to mix it up if we want to.
I mean, and if you're Billy Waters, you're going to be looking for more minutes than you got. I mean, I was there to see. I feel like I wanted it on a T-shirt by the end. I was there to see Billy Waters, down at Torquay, as were you. He didn't get much of a cameo. You couldn't really draw too much from it, could you? Really? But he's going to want to play a bit more. Ollie Palmer, no doubt. I mean, the first away game of the season is AFC Wimbledon away. Ollie Palmer will be itching to play there against his former team. Dalby, I think, has got every chance of playing regularly, and who knows, like you say, business. We mentioned him all weeks. Nick Powell, could he play up top if he comes in? We'll get onto him later. Alfie May again, still not signed anywhere. All different options. I mean, look, a few months ago we had Hal Robson-Kanu lobbying to play up top for us, didn't he, on a free? But yeah, Dalby, congrats to Dalby on winning Young Player of the Season, very well deserved. Max Cleworth last season, Sam Dalby this season, and Paul Mullin. Did he go back to back? I'm sure he did. Back to back on all those awards. Well, definitely. I think Players Player went to someone else last season. Was it Luke Young or was it Mullin again last year? I'm not sure.
I think it was
Maybe.
Mullin. I think it was you and me trying to be hipsters again last season.
Maybe.
It all went to.
Well, there you go. So he's defended all his titles, and then the other one's Rich. Women's Player of the Season, unsurprisingly, has gone to Rosie Hughes, the top goal scorer last season, and Women's Young Player of the Season has gone to Amber Lightfoot, strike partner up top for Rosie Hughes, and Women's Players Player of the Season, defender fullback Erin Lovett, who was one of the 10 to get those historic first 10 semi-pro deals.